Hey everybody, this is Sparklestorm, and we are here at the 7CZ for episode 3, where we are finally going to get to see our first animal habitat today. So, here in the courtyard, you can see a few of the different entrances to the various continent areas of the park. You can see Australia over there, and behind the centerpiece is Antarctica. And then over here, we have Africa and the Americas. And today, we are going to be heading into Asia and Europe. So, the idea behind the layout of this zoo is that there are these two long looping pathways that take you through the seven continents of the world, so that if you want to visit all of them, you could just head down one path, loop all the way back around to the courtyard, and then take the other loop. And I want to set this up a little bit differently than the Swinging Vine Zoo so that there's going to be one main path with small viewing areas or walkthrough paths that jut off but always lead guests back to the main path. So here I'm setting up a path that is going to be inside a covered viewing area for the Japanese macaque. After checking the size requirements for this habitat, I like to use a guess and check method for the barrier. So I just lay out what I think is roughly the right size with null barriers and then make any little adjustments that I need and always leaving a little bit of extra room for the stuff that takes up space in the habitat, like plants and rocks and feeding trays. For this whole section of the park, I want to have an Asian feel. So I used the East Asia filter and found this stone brick wall and East Asia painted timber, which I think look really pretty together. And at this point, I don't really have a plan in mind other than I want the building to be kind of open, more like a pergola that the guests would just walk through and have kind of a covered roof section. And I want one wall to be a huge glass window into the habitat. So, of course, I'm fiddling with this. It kind of rotates funny once I had them all selected together. I'm still working on figuring out those axis points of rotation and how to get it to work how I'd like. Um, so after putting on this first piece of timber, I realized that it wasn't really quite extending far enough over the habitat. So I'm adding this second smaller piece of timber, and I need to adjust every single one individually. So, I mean, maybe if I had a better plan in mind before I start, I would save myself some time in the long run. But, I could just set one up perfectly and then duplicate it across. But I guess that's just not how my brain works. And I kind of just adjust as I go and new ideas pop into mind. So, usually ends up taking me a lot longer than I expect. So some more fiddling here with these pieces to get them lined up. These timber beams are really beautiful, but they are uneven. So it's really tricky to get them to blend in together and not see the edges. But they're just so pretty that it doesn't matter. So when I finally get the base to a point that I'm happy with, I add these primitive pieces to fill in the roof. But I end up changing those out for timber later, so I am just going to skip ahead. I use the barrier to create a full glass window in the viewing area. There's no piece of glass in the game that is big enough. So even though it is going to break down and require maintenance, it's still worth it, I think, to have one giant piece of glass for that viewing area. And not that it really matters anyway, because this is Sandbox, so we can just hire as many mechanics as we need. After struggling with lining up the barrier gates with my buildings again and again, I decide to place my gate before building the shelter for the macaques. And I'm not actually planning to spend too much time on this building because it's really just a base for the rock structure. My idea for the habitat is to have this massive rock wall in the back where the macaques can climb all over, and it also has these cave like entrances into their hard shelter. So then I realized that I somehow deleted my gate. So I was back to lining up my building with my barrier entrance. Once I got that set, it was time to move on to some of the other habitat features. One of the reasons that I like Japanese macaques so much is that they like to partake in one of my favorite relaxation activities, the hot tub. So these little primates are super well adapted to the cold and they can live in subarctic regions in temperatures of up to minus 20 degrees Celsius, which is why they're also called snow monkeys. And they like to warm up by soaking in hot springs, something that they apparently learned by watching humans. So for this hot tub, I could have used the same technique that I used for the pond in the entrance, but for some reason I decided to create it with terraforming. And once I made sure that the water was going to work, flashbacks to my Galapagos tortoise fiasco, then I painted the whole habitat with rock, which, by the way, I think looks awful from up here. But don't worry, I end up covering most of it with snow and plants and stuff anyway. Most of these hot springs that I've seen on nature shows have a rock perimeter, so I spent some time getting that set up to look as natural as I could. I wanted to have some jetting out into the pool and some sunk into the water like steps. And at this point, I'm just really hoping that the monkeys are going to actually use the pool. I used a mix of temperate and taiga rocks, hoping that would help to make it look a little bit more realistic. So, this might be a good time for a few facts about the macaque. There are 120,000 in the wild, so they are not endangered. They are considered of least concern. They are super social and live in groups of 20 to 30, but have even been seen in groups of up to 100. A couple of other things they may have learned from watching humans is they have been seen to wash dirt and sand off of sweet potatoes before eating them, and they also seem to make snowballs just for fun. And they also play with stones. In primates, this is often a precursor to learning to use tools. For the rock wall at the back of the habitat, I get rid of the arch pieces because I want to make cave entrances out of rocks. And then I just start building from the base up. But I add and delete rocks so many times over the course of building this, and I just can't get it to look right. And it took me forever. So I actually speed up this section a bit faster than the rest of the video. Whenever I can, I'm going to speed up the video by just 5 times so that it is a bit easier for you to follow. I don't know about you, but when I'm watching a speed build, sometimes it is flashing by so fast that I can't really follow what they are doing. And I definitely feel that way about some of my first speed build videos in the Swinging Vine Zoo. And I think I really noticed it when I was watching one with my niece and she was saying things like, wait, what? What did you just do there? Or what piece was that? So I wanted to slow these down a bit so that you can actually see what pieces I am using and how I am moving them around if that's something that you're interested in. That being said, if I have the whole build at 5 times speed, then my video is way too long. So I guess I have to find a happy medium. So for this video anyway, I'm just speeding up the Rockwall section to 16 times, which is the max that my video editing software will do. So finally, I get the rock wall to a point that I'm happy with. And I'm also hoping that when I add some trees in behind, then it will look even better. I just do some final touches here, twisting and turning a few of the rocks to break up the repetition. And then it's time to move on to adding some snow. But the snow isn't sticking. And I'm like, wait, what is going on here? I can't have snow monkeys with no snow until I realize that although I am in the taiga, it is currently 20 degrees Celsius. So now I don't want to change the temperature of the whole park because I'm planning to have lots of animals from warmer climates as well. So I just need to add an area cooler to the habitat. And hooray, we have snow. Next, I want to add some climbable habitat items to the rock wall because I have a feeling that the macaques are not going to actually be able to climb the rocks. I'm pretty sure that they'll be able to jump between some of the rocks if it's not too big of a height difference, like the mandrills in SVZ, but I think these rocks are too steep. To add some snow to the rocks, I'm grabbing the snow covered rock that I had used most often, the temperate rock 14, and I'm sinking it in and rotating it until it looks like it's just a dusting of snow. And in the end, though, I pretty much hate how this looks and I delete the whole thing. So watch for that in the final cinematics. This rock wall looks quite different. Remind me never to build another rock wall. Sometimes I jump around a lot when I'm building, so here I am back working on the viewing structure again. I'm thinking that the overhang part looks like it needs some support, so I'm adding in another little East Asia decorative corner lattice, which didn't really look big enough, so I'm adding a few more timber pieces to extend it. And I really like how this ended up looking. Sometimes it's these smallest little details that really add to the overall feel of the build. You'll see in the final cinematics that there are a few more touches from East Asia added in here and there. So just adding a feeding tray and some more climbable structures and then on to some plants. So mostly for this habitat, I used the bearberry bush, the common saltwort, one of my favorites, the cypress tree, trin grass, the hawthorn bush, and the Himalayan pine. One thing that I'm really disappointed about is that the macaques don't actually snuggle. So, in real life, they are very social and they form bonds by grooming each other. But in the game, I don't really see them doing that so much. So, if I had a wish for the Japanese macaque, it would be that um, they could have this kind of animal interaction where they snuggle and groom each other because it is just so adorable to watch. The last step is adding the keeper hut and the staff room tucked in behind the shelter and then hiding it as best I can with some trees. For this park, I'm planning to have a keeper hut and staff room for every two habitats, and why not? It is Sandbox after all. I'm sure I'm going to have a rude awakening when I play my first game in franchise mode, and I actually have to consider the money. So there are cinematics coming at the end of this video, but just before that I wanted to take you on a tour, and I wanted to start back here at the gate so we could have a bit of a closer look at this entrance into this portion of the zoo. So it is a blend of classic pieces to represent the European section that's down this path and East Asian pieces for Asia. And then when we enter this path, we immediately enter into Asia, just immersed in Asian foliage. And when we come up to our first habitat, we have a sign that is going to be on each of the Asian habitats. So, really, to differentiate this section from other areas, one is the pathway, and then the second piece will be the sign. And this sign is just made with a few of the different East Asian pieces. So, this is a shop fascia and a canopy piece, a few of the timber pieces in here, and then the habitat information screen inserted into it. So each of the Asian habitats is going to have this sign. So over here you can see that I actually did a fair bit of changes off camera. I really didn't like the way that the fences ended up looking, the barrier perimeter. So I changed that to concrete and then just with these sections of glass that we can peer into. So there really is these more focused sections where people can gather and peer into the world of the macaque. So from here we can see, we're just a little bit high. From here we can see their hot springs. don't think anybody is in the hot springs right now. They are climbing all over this structure in the back. From here we can also see how different this rock wall ended up looking. So I'll take you around and give you a closer look at that as well. And we can see a few of the other Asian decor pieces in here. So some more lattice work on the inside of these concrete pieces and some lanterns decorating the barrier. I don't know if we can see it from over here, so I'm going to show you, maybe I'm just going to pop through the glass, this lattice corner piece that ended up kind of supporting the overhang. That I really like the way that it ended up looking. And then when we come in here, we can see through this giant glass window a beautiful wide view of their habitat. We've got a few of them hanging out here waiting to be fed. And we have another shot of the rock wall from here. So I ended up just getting rid of all of the bumpy pieces and just putting in these large flat sections. And I can't say that I'm actually happy with it now either, but I'm done. I'm done with it. I can say that. So over here I have a donation bin that I've just hidden inside some baskets. East Asia basket, and I've just flipped one over. Kind of makes me think of like, I'm not sure what they're called, but it would have a lid that flipped whenever the money went in. So it would keep the money nice and secure in there, and overall it looks much better than the original donation bins. Over here we have another little window to peek through and observe the macaques. Look at them all over there right now. I think we have to go back over here and have a look as they are all gathering around here right now. Alright, and over here we've got our staff only area. So back here we have our door to the shelter. We have some gates on some rails here so they slide to each side, and I made this lock mechanism with just these two trim wood ends flipped around, and this little conservation gutter half pipe bracket, which has quickly become one of my favorite pieces. A tool wall hook, and then our memorial plaque, editable sign, just to make a latch for our gate. We have our keeper door, which has a rock jutting through it, because I can't put an actual door here, because my keeper cannot actually walk through a door inside the habitat, so I have to have this door propped open as if they forgot to close and lock it. You can see a few more of those lattice pieces over here and lanterns. I'll leave you now with a few cinematic shots, and we'll be back next time with the red panda. Thanks so much for watching, and bye for now.